Welcome to the Creation of Living podcast. I'm your host, Heather Nichols, and I'm delighted you're here. Join me for conversations and inspirations for creating way more in every area of your life and living. Welcome, everybody, to the very first Creation of Living podcast. I'm Heather Nichols, and I'm with you this week with the lovely and amazing Sylvia Puentes, who is a dear friend of mine, somebody that I just totally adore, and is an access consciousness facilitator, a right voice for you facilitator, a joy of business facilitator, a being you facilitator, and event coordinator for the Americas in access consciousness, and just a phenomenal being. Thank you so much, Sylvia, for launching this baby with me.
Thank you, Heather. And I was delighted when you say you're launching. Yes, I'll come and play and launch something else magical out in the world. So thank you for inviting.
Yes. And we actually, we're kicking this off and playing in the month of April with the theme of magic. And you are one of the most magical people that I know. And I thought, who better to interview than you?
That's, it's interesting. This is the second invitation to do something on magic. And I've been in the questions like, wow, what is it that we've defined magic to be? Because if you would ask me, and we'll get into different things on this show, but what is magic? From someone who's being something where life is filled with ease and you ask and you receive, you don't always notice that you're actually choosing that's different. So, for me, if anybody would have said, oh, you're just such magic, I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, isn't this available for everyone? Right? So you don't always get to see. So really that explainable space of ease, joy, ask and receive, for me, I'm beginning to see the magic of that not everyone chooses. So am I the most magical person? Well, if that's the case, what else could I ask for? Because we have these capacities. Wow, are we truly using them?
Yeah, totally.
So and then it's like, what does everybody actually know about magic? Because the more I get asked about it, the more awareness I actually have of what I've been choosing and being that's so different. And in that space, it's like, oh, okay, what can I do that's different? Or not what can I do, but what have I done or chosen that's so different, that's created this incredible ease in my world and the space of magic that I haven't always acknowledged was there. So, yeah.
Well,
where would you like to begin with all of that or go from there?
Well, it reminds me of one of my favorite Dane Heer quotes, who's one of the co-creators of Access Consciousness. What you don't acknowledge doesn't exist. And another quote about magic is that from a recent class that we had, is that it's basically, I don't know the direct quote, but it's basically that magic is something that shouldn't happen. Like it's sort of not supposed to happen, but it does. And I think that's there are these things all the time where these things that show up that we don't realize we're being different, that we don't realize that they're different. They're sort of things that aren't supposed to happen, but they do, because we're just kind of going along in our lives, doing our thing, and things are showing up and occurring, and we're creating things and actualizing things. And we don't think it's really any different, And so if there's this whole universe of, and I've seen this with you, like this whole universe of what you be and how you move through the world, and you're just sort of like, yeah, this is just, how I roll, and if we don't take time to actually acknowledge it, it's like it's diminished, basically.
And I love, yeah, I have heard that. And some story that popped right now was there was a moment I was hiking up through the mountains and I had split up from my sister. We chose to take different paths. And I didn't have a point of view about it, but it was strange. You start a hike with someone and then you choose to go different paths and then we'll just see you at home, right? But
Mm-hmm.
in that hike, I saw a butterfly fluttering its wings and I thought, huh. And then all of a sudden there was a lizard, basking in the sun, and then it scurried away. And I thought, wait, the butterfly's not asking, who am I? What's my purpose? And neither is the lizard. And yet they're just being,
Yeah.
there's, and it was in the moment that I acknowledged whatever that energy was of being, and not in the search for anything, not in the anything else than just what you're choosing in the moment, like whatever they were being, that butterfly and lizard, I thought there was an incredible energy present after that. I was like, whoa, like
Yeah.
what else is available when we're not looking at the search to find an answer of the purpose of life, or what choice we should make, or to save the world. And it really is like, what would it be like to live like today? I'll bask in the sun to, and for us, I get it's different, right? Maybe I take that job, maybe I don't. Or and so that, as I look at some of the choices that I've made and started to look at, it's like, oh, it was like, yes, no, like I have actually functioned more from, wow, what's going to create more, and the willingness to take certain steps or make certain choices that weren't comfortable, in the sense that I didn't know what the result was going to be, whether it
Yeah.
was a divorce, whether it was resigning a job, whether it was saying yes to something that I didn't know how I was going to do it. But what I can now trust and acknowledge, like what you're talking about, Heather, is that I actually did know. But it was a
Mm.
different kind of knowing, not from having it figured out, not from even considering the result, but just trusting this, like, I'm not sure what this is, but okay. But not just okay blindly, but wow, this has an energy, like it's going to expand and grow something.
Yeah.
And that's actually, if I can start to look at it and acknowledge more, has been a key to the magic that I be, or the things that I acknowledge with ease, or the way I hop around. Just
Mm-hmm.
recently, I was in two classes on the same weekend. And so like, well, Sylvia, maybe you've already, because, people, we often say like, oh, I wish I could be in two places at once. And someone chuckled, Sylvia, you're kind of doing it. I was out in Florida in one class, and then, left a little early to make it to another one out here in Houston. And yet there's not a single tired part of my body or being.
Yeah.
And I get that's the magic too, when we're actually following what's true. There's not the this realities of tiredness or lack of energy, or yeah, like there's more this
Mm-hmm.
vibrancy and energy that opens up. Yeah, so
I love that, a vibrancy and energy that opens up. That's very well said. And this podcast is called The Creation of Living. And that's been something I've been playing with for many years in different ways, and classes and stuff, um, and conversations. And to me, the creation of living is, it's not really ever been something that I could totally define, which I love. But it is about living your life from the beauty of it and the enjoyment of it, and actually creating a life and living that you desire to have, and including your body in that, and like acknowledging that as you do, if you live your life from the joy, the pleasure, the ease, the hedonism of it, the actually magic does show up. And it's like when we get out of our heads and we get into the flow of things, the movement of just how the universe is sort of like, hey, how about this? And you're like, sure. How about you go to this class too? Sure, that seems fun. And there's no significance to it, and there's no form and structure to it, and there's no sense of like, oh my gosh, so it's going to be hard, it's going to be complicated, but it's just this like movement of energy that you're willing to be in.
And yes,
Yeah.
and that movement, it's, when you see young kids playing, right, like really young, and they're out in the yard, and they're playing all sorts of things, and right, and then they're
Hmm.
willing to see, the rock, and the rock becomes something else, and then everything's used, everything, they can just play and move around with such ease, and that willingness to use everything and play. There was something that I was going to go with that. What was it? Let's see. Oh, but that willingness to play.
Well, it's just this like creative, I would
Oh, that's
say,
it. If I
yeah.
got, because it's the creative play part. Um, and it's gone again. That's so interesting. Okay, go, Heather. Just gonna let it
Well,
go.
I think about my son. I've shared this a few times in different classes and stuff, but my son Jaden, when he was little, he would come into the kitchen. He was maybe 5 or something, or 6, and he'd come into the kitchen, um, and he would grab a bowl, and he'd grab all these different things, and put them in a bowl. Like soy sauce and mayonnaise and mustard and sugar, and he'd like be intently doing his little thing, and he'd stir it up, and then he'd just leave, you know and it was like there was no purpose to it at all. There was just no purpose. There was no aim, there was no target, there was no agenda, there was no sense of like, I am creating something. It was just like,
Yes,
I'm just
that's the
gonna
energy.
put all this together. Okay.
And that's the energy of also that I was looking at earlier, was the ask and the receive, but really from play as well, that willingness, like not to have it to look in a certain way. And I remember, several years ago, but looking at buying some property, some rental property, and we had purchased one. And I remember asking, like, it'd be great to find a rental property that I didn't have to do anything to it, no updates, no, not even cleaning, like it would have just this ease. And we did. Like we purchased it, and before the month was out, we had it rented, and I never picked up even a dust rag. Like, and that was just so fun for me. It's like, wow, that was so cool. And even the way I picked out the tenants is like I turned over the applications. I'm all, this one, no, yes, no. This one, yes. This one, no. Then 3 were a yes, and it's like, okay, which one's going to create the greatest? This one, no. This one, yes. And that same tenant stayed there for almost 5 years. So, but that again is that place. Like, okay, I'll try it. So then after that one got rented, I'm all, and my ex-husband now, but has said, well, what if we look at another one? I'm all, and wouldn't it be awesome if we got it rented even in a shorter period of time? And he's all like, you're crazy. And literally, we walked in to pick up the keys. And as we were walking out, a couple was walking in and saying, we'd love to see the place. They
Oh
went in
yeah.
the house to look at it, and they're like, we have 3 months worth we're willing to pay right now, and we'll take it. And he looked at me, and I just like smiled, like, yep. And then we got to the car. Well, we still got to do all the background check and everything. I was like, okay. But in that moment, in my okay was still acknowledging, like, oh, that was super fun.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't even about proving anything, but it was just the fun of it.
Yeah.
So for me, the magic of, like, we've heard it so frequently and maybe often, asking you shall receive, the law of the
Mhm.
universe. And it's like, how many of us are actually willing to ask?
Yeah.
And just for the fun of it, like, and this is where I always say play and start with something that seems insignificant, because then we get into significance, and that kills magic, by the way.
Totally.
So if you have a little significance or a lot of significance, you might want to just ask for more play.
Oh, I
Yep.
love that. I love that. The antidote to significance is play. Truly, it's so true. Um, well, and the thing also that I'd love to highlight here is the aspect of being, which is when you are being you, it doesn't feel like anything. You don't necessarily feel anything. And so many people have made magic so significant. And it's I actually, this is like, it's interesting that I'm like, oh, we're going to do magic, and I have some classes on magic in April. And it's so interesting to me because I haven't actually even wanted to talk about this topic,
Yes.
because it has such significance to it. And people have so many points of view about what it is and how it shows up and what it looks like. And it's just never been something I've actually desired to really explore because of that point of view, even though I explore it on my own all the time. But I get that, part of your magic and part of my magic and part of the magic that's available to anybody who's willing to choose it and explore it is it's this space of being that is just feels like nothing. Like my son walking into the kitchen and going, I'm going to mix some stuff up and then I'm done.
And that's where I get that there's elements of that can lead you to beginning to acknowledge the magic you are. It's almost like magic is just, we talk about it's almost like you be magic, like it's there, you are
Mm-hmm.
it, you're
Mm-hmm.
breathing, you're on this planet, like you wake up in the, I mean, you be it. So if it wasn't significant, if it literally was, it's like, wow, ask, wow, what magic can I acknowledge about me today?
Yeah.
And I'm at a beautiful ranch in Texas right now, Lazy Double D, and but there's just animals everywhere. And the moment we were interacting with the horse, or just there's these moments where I know for me that horse saw me. There was just this sense of being received and acknowledged in a way, or that I contributed something to that horse's body by my touch. I may never be able to explain that or even have the result of it show
Mm-hmm.
up.
Mm.
And yet, the only thing that will acknowledge the magic I be is me.
Yes.
And so how do you put that into words? And so it's like, okay, what has actualized in your life with ease? Where have you had that moment of play where everything seemed to flow with speed and ease? It's like, okay, was that the magic of you being you?
Mm.
Yes, no, yes, no. And again, you might not be able to tell a whole lot of people, but if you begin to acknowledge it for you, it's like, oh, wow, I was asking for champagne. And, my housemate was like, hey, I have 2 bottles. Really good champagne. Nice. Okay. you know, can consider that magic? Or, and I've also done and had experiences where I'm traveling to different countries where, the quote unquote ease of getting there wasn't there, but the willingness to demand anything and everything to contribute to me from it to go with ease as much as possible, that
Yeah.
demand had it show up. And I also get that our demand to ask and receive can have things show up that most people would think are impossible.
Wow. Yeah, beautiful. And I think, the willingness to be anything and everything is such a huge part of that because, when you do run into, difficulties in your life and living, it's like that might just be the universe sort of, calling on a different energy for like, just you need to step into a different energy or be something different, be something more intense or more demanding or more something that you haven't been before, or be willing to be less visible or more visible or whatever. Um, and as we do that, it's like all like so much becomes available because we're being it and we're choosing it.
Yes. So with that, I facilitate a series online called the Nine Trannies. And what
Mm,
I've discovered in facilitating that is that one of the biggest things that blocks the capacities we have to have the magic be the magic is truly being willing to be undefined, being
mm,
willing to choose whatever is required in the moment for the situation or whatever it is. But if you are stuck in that you are a certain way, that you can or can't something, that magic doesn't show up as easily.
yeah.
Or at your request, it's not going to show up that easy. Will things still show up, as if by magic? Yes. But what if we truly have the capacity from like instantaneously ask and have something show up? But you got to be willing to be anything at
Mm.
any moment.
Yes, that is so brilliant. I think that's a great place to wrap it up. A little bit of a cliffhanger.
And a great beginning to your incredible podcast, Miss Heather Nichols.
Exactly. Yeah. So you do have a 9 Trendies class coming up soon, don't you?
I do. We actually are starting with the opening call on May 25th, and then it runs for 3 months. And it really is, it does have a prereq, and that's the foundation class with Access Consciousness. And then after that, it's like, buckle up, because it is a conversation beyond this reality, and the willingness for you to acknowledge way more than what you've ever acknowledged, and perhaps step out of judgment more than you thought you could, because that is a huge key to unleashing all your capacities with way more ease.
Wow, That is so awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Cool. And I've actually got some, I have 2 classes on magic coming up in April. One of them starts on the 7th, and it's a 14-day energetic series called Being a Magician Without Blowing Yourself Up.
I love it.
Because so often we use our magic against ourselves. So we will dive into that and flip turn the tables on that. And I also have a Being You, what is it? Being Magic, The Adventure of Being You class at the end of April. Yeah. So,
beautiful. So what a beautiful exploration to have more people walking on the planet that are willing to acknowledge the magic that they be. So,
oh man,
thank you for this.
Because then anything is possible. And when we are willing to be everything, then we can bring that to fruition in the world. So, and it's definitely time.
It is.
So,
and have way more fun.
Yeah, totally. Do you have a website or anything that people can?
I do. It's under repair at the moment, but you can search it in a couple days. It should be all settled. Meet Sylvia with a Y, Puentes. P as in Paul, UENTES.com.
Cool. Awesome. We'll include it in the show notes as well. So thank you so much, lovely friend, for being here. And thanks, everybody. Go forth and have way, way, way too much fun.
I agree.
See you next time. Thank you for joining me for the Creation of Living podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it and leave me a review. If you would like more, you can find all kinds of resources and upcoming events at heathernichols.com. Until next time, remember, my beautiful friends, the world thrives when you do.